Today's interview is with Mike Desrosiers. Hopefully, Mike, I got your surname right. I'm sorry if I butchered it a little bit. But it's a great interview today. I really enjoyed and learned a lot from today's interview. Mike has been an entrepreneur for a lot of his life, has been his own boss. And more recently, he's really ventured into the commercial side of real estate investing and into multifamily. His skill set is raising money, and there's some great information today about how he goes about raising money. So if you want to be a money raiser and you're interested in that, stick around for all today's interview because there's some great tips and tricks, and I've definitely learned something. As always, like and subscribe on Wrestling with Real Estate, the YouTube channel. Go to the WWRE Podcast and give me a 5-star rating and write me a good review if you think it's worthy. And again, I'm looking to meet as many of you as possible. So if you're interested in investing in real estate in whatever capacity, if you're looking to be a passive investor, if you're looking to be an active investor, whatever it is, I'd love to get to know you and hear more about you. So go to the link in the description below and sign up for a phone call, or go to the wrestlingwithrealestate.com website and there's a link for the sign up there, and I would love to hear more about you. But before that, stick around for today's great interview with Mike, and he talks about capital raising. Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler, and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now today we have Mike with us. Hey Mike, how you doing?
Hey Barry, great. Man, how are you?
Yeah, I'm fantastic. I'm fantastic.
Thank you for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. It's my pleasure to have you. Thank you for making the time. We were talking before, you have a really cool background. I had to ask you if it was a virtual background. It looks that cool. I love the boats. And where I grew up, we had a small port. So I always love the sailboats that you have there. So it looks really cool. Sorry, I got off topic a little bit. Before we jump into today's conversation, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background and what you're focused on right now?
Sure. Yeah, I live in the Northern California, San Francisco Bay Area. Been pretty much born and raised my whole life. I've definitely been an entrepreneur in different businesses, food service to the advertising and marketing, which is what I'm in now. And I run a business that I've had for actually quite a long time, 30 years. So it's almost dating myself there, but and truly not too many businesses even last that long, no matter what it is. But it kind of fills a certain niche in the business, and we do a lot of business with high tech and biotech. So, but all along, it's interesting. And somebody told me this is the first story. It's the first time that I rented an office when I was just a kid. I was like 18 years old. I started my first business, and I rented a mini storage to run my business out of. And I remember the guy who rented me the mini storage, this old guy who's probably like 70 years old back then. And, he just asked me about my business and all that. And then he just went on to tell me about the story that he was an electrician for, like 40 years. And at the end of it all, he ended up just closing his business down because his business was worth nothing. But the real estate that he bought along the way made him wealthy as can be. And it's funny because, I remember that, and I've remembered it all along. But I wish I had participated even more when I was younger, because it's so true. Yeah. And I'm kind of the same way. It's my business. It does okay. It makes a living, and I enjoy it. It's fun. I kind of work it more part time these days. But it's the real estate that I've bought along that business has been able to make the payments or afford to buy. That's really done well for me. So I've I've done mostly single family, either flips or rentals, kind of all along. Just recently, meaning like a couple of years ago, got more into the multifamily. And of course, I would have loved to got into that when I was in my 20s as well too, because that's done so great. And there's so many great things about multifamily. But I started buying a small building in Las Vegas, and then more recently got into a couple of larger deals in College Station, Texas, and Kansas City. And it's just been, yeah, it's a fun ride. I mean, I'm just really enjoying the people that I meet and the connections that I make. And it's really interesting. It's a fantastic business.
Yeah, I agree. I'm preaching to the choir here. I love real estate. And I think it's so interesting that you say that back at 18, that this guy was this, experienced gentleman was telling you about that real estate. And I'm sure planted that seed early on about real estate for you. And it's funny that you remember that, because most people, they remember a certain moment that maybe really sparked their interest in real estate. And I'm sure that, there was other ones, I'm sure, but that's an interesting one that started. So going back to when you were 18, then you started as a business owner when you were 18. You've always worked for yourself then?
Yeah, pretty much. I did. I started at 18. I did start taking some night classes in college, but I was taking them primarily to figure out how to run my business, right? That I'd already started, like accounting classes and marketing classes, advertising, things like that. And that was really good because that helped out, because, they didn't even have computers that did so much stuff back then as they do today. So you had to figure out how to do a balance sheet and, how to balance a checkbook, for that matter, right? And but yeah, so I started out doing that. I ran into different businesses at different times, mostly all in kind of the marketing, sales type businesses, and then I started in this promotional marketing business 30 years ago.
Wow, yeah. That's really cool. What do you think sparked that entrepreneurial spirit in you so young? Because obviously some people are like yourself, they've always worked for yourselves, never worked for someone else, and then other people, they go climb the corporate ladder. What do you think it was that sparked that for you?
I'm not sure. It's interesting. My parents are both educators, they're basically school teachers, and got into my father was the dean of men at one of the college districts and so forth, but he was always into education. So they didn't really have the entrepreneur side of them, but my grandfather did. My grandfather has a great story of coming over from this country and escaping out of Germany during the whole Holocaust, and coming over, starting from nothing, and rebuilding, washing dishes, selling food for a food company during the day, and washing dishes in a restaurant at night, and built himself quite a portfolio himself.
So he invested in real estate himself?
He did. I mean, at the end of the day, his home was worth a lot of money, that he owned, but he actually was not really, he was not an advocate for real estate. Interesting enough, but he made his money in other things and sold his business and made money with that. But he went through some of the downturn back in his day, and I think it kind of hurt him a lot. So it kind of soured him a little on real estate. It can be tough if you're not prepared for something, a downturn of the economy, and obviously we know a lot of people, especially in single family, can get hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the interesting thing with what happened with the Great Recession in 08, 09, right, is that unfortunately, obviously, it hurt a lot of people, and that's unfortunate. But I think for real estate investors today, to some extent, right, there's a lot of speculators out there, but people remember that, right? So now when people buy these days, I know for one, me, I have, especially currently we're November 4th, right? The election day. Oh, yesterday was election day, so the day after the election day. Is that when I invest now, I know what happened in 08 or 09, right? I don't expect it to happen, and I hope it doesn't happen again, but I kind of have that eye in it, and I think, it kind of, I don't want to say it helps, but maybe it helps people, because I hear a lot of people talking about that, and they're aware of the situation, because, maybe in 08 or 09, everyone just thought real estate always goes up, right? Real estate always goes up, and then until it didn't, and it dropped quite drastically. So I think there's a lot, I think that did some good in some ways, right? And obviously I heard a lot of people, I'm not saying that it was good. I would rather nobody had lost a penny, but I think a lot of people seem to have learned from that. I hope we'll see, I guess, if there is something in the future.
I mean, the key is, and you're right. I mean, you have to have kind of either gone through it or read about it and, really know what does happen. But, I think the key is just not to be over leveraged. And that's been, I think, because you can always ride it out. I mean, even this last downturn in at that time in '08, I mean, they were saying, oh, it's going to last, it's going to be 10 years, maybe 15 years before it may never come back, right? And 2 years later, all of a sudden it's on its way back up like a racehorse.
Yeah.
So but if you can hold on, I think you're always going to be good.
Yeah, like I said, they say the three immutable laws of real estate: buy for cash flow, don't over leverage, and have long-term financing, right, or as long-term as you can. So just like you said there, you can ride it out. If you have those things, you can ride out the storm and kind of hopefully come out the other side. So
that's right.
Do you remember what your first ever real estate investment was?
Sure. It was a little condominium, that I bought. Probably, I think I bought it for like $85,000 and sold it for 110, and thought I made a killing. And that was a big deal. Now that same condominium where I bought that is probably $800,000 or something.
Oh, wow. So this is a couple of years ago, I'm guessing. Then.
A couple of years ago, yeah.
Oh, great. And so then you said recently you came across multifamily, right? Well, when was that, and how did that happen? Do you remember?
Yeah. So I came across two pretty large properties. One's a 60 unit in College Station, Texas, and it was just I'm only in as a general partner on that property, but all three introductions, I was introduced by somebody else that I know that's seen some transactions that I've dealt with, and they introduced me to another team that was taking down that property, and they're raising money, and so I was able to get in kind of under that. That's what I did for them. So but that got me in as a general partner, and then still gets me into the properties. I'm in every couple of weeks at a meeting for all the general partners and decision making and so forth. So it's a great experience. And it's a lot of fun, right? So it takes some of the pressure off of having, you're not running the whole thing yourself, but you're still involved. And then through that, I got another introduction to another team out of Kansas City that got me into a 426 unit complex, or it's a 3-building portfolio, 3 apartment buildings, all in the same in Independence, Missouri. And I was able to do the same thing. I raised money and came in as kind of a marketing arm for them. And I came in as a general partner, and so that just closed. And now it's, both are big value adds, little different stories for each one, but I'm really excited about being part of them all.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's some big steps, right? For to diving into the multifamily, right? An 80 unit is huge to start off with, or for most people it's a lot. That's a lot of units, but a 400 plus units is, that's incredible. That's quite the start, which is really cool to hear. How were you introduced? How did you go about it? Because I'm guessing you must have been how did you go, how did someone know that you wanted to, how did that process work in terms of finding that syndication teams?
Sure. Well, I have another like a local partnership, actually my wife and another couple that we've kind of teamed up, and we were kind of part of some of the same real estate groups and so forth, and the training that is available, and we actually met at one of those meetup groups, and then we kind of teamed up with to try to kind of take down our first large property and kind of do it together. So we've had weekly meetings on Zoom, and it's continuing our education and being able to just underwrite properties and kind of talk about them, and because there's a lot of decisions you need to make when you get started with it. You have to, starting with what area you want to focus on. There's a lot of areas around the country to invest in, and so you kind of want to focus on particularly one area. It makes it a lot easier because you start calling brokers and getting these relationships going in these cities and areas. So we've been doing that for a while, and then through that we just got into a lot of different connections, mostly through these kind of meetup groups, and everybody kind of brings something to the table, right? And talk about your strengths and what you can do. And, one of the things that I've been able to do pretty successfully is raise money, not only for my own deals that or my own future deals, but for some other people's deals as well too. So I raised over $1 million on just the last deal alone, and that news spreads fast. That's what I've found, and all of a sudden it gets attention of people because there's on the large multifamily, it's a team sport, right? You can't take these things down by yourself, and it takes a lot of work by a lot of different people. And just hunting to find the property is a big deal, and then analyzing it, and then running the property is obviously a big deal, even just running the property manager. But then you got to find the money, and that's another big deal too. And so, but different people can bring different values to the table, and that makes it a lot easier when you can partner up with people that can handle some of the other duties that you maybe can't quite so easy. So that's kind of how it worked with me, is that I was just talking with some different people. I wasn't running around going, hey, I can raise money, talk to me. But, I'm talking to, I was talking to one team that does, that has taken down quite a bit of larger deals. And I've been talking about them with partnering, and, kind of told them that, hey, I can raise money if need be. And I'd like to get in as a partner. And so we haven't quite found one, but they're still looking too. And I know we talk all the time. But then they introduced me to this other team in Kansas City that was putting together this big deal, and it's the biggest deal they've done. And they just said, hey, I got somebody that I could introduce you to that might be able to help raise money. And so then we kind of got together, and I didn't know whether I was going to be able to raise enough for them or not, but you don't know until you start asking around. The numbers make sense, and I was able to underwrite it, and I feel confident about it. You're right. I mean, it's interesting. Back before I really got into all of this, just to think about raising even just $1 million from other people's money, it's like, wow, I don't want that responsibility, right? I mean, that's a kind of a big deal. But as you get through the training, and you can't fake this business. I mean, you can a little bit, but I mean, especially when you're using other people's money, or looking at multi-million-dollar properties, you really have to do your work and know what you're talking about. But you underwrite they've underwritten the property, and then I'm underwriting the property, and I do all that before I even bring it to an investor. So I already feel confident about it, and then then it's just putting it out to them, and whether they want the investment or not.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What did you do to get educated to start off with? How did you, because as you mentioned there, you can kind of fake it, but you can't, right? You're going to get found out pretty quickly, I feel like, in this business, if you don't know what you're talking about, because it's not like a single family home, right? And, single family home is an easy purchase, but it's a lot easier than multifamily. There's a lot less sophistication, a lot less numbers, a lot less things that can go wrong. What did you do before I'm guessing you got educated before you hooked up with this group to some extent, right? What did you do to get educated?
Yeah,
people might be able to learn from.
So it's been a couple. I mean, the RE Mentor Network is a big one out of the East Coast, right? And they're kind of the big players in the industry as far as the education side of that. And I went through that with my wife a couple of years ago. We did a couple of their weekend seminars that kind of start you out, and that they're really valuable, because I mean, it's a lot of information in a really short period of time, but it for sure it makes you understand that the information is there, right? Because with this real estate and even the syndication process, it's not really difficult. It's just a lot of information, and it's tough to retain all that information in one little weekend. So, but that starts it out, and then there's continuing education, and you kind of then you group up with other people that they're all doing the same thing. They're all trying to learn it. It scares the what out of everybody when they first start, right? Because you talk about millions properties that are millions of dollars and raising millions of dollars. I mean, if you're not scared, you need to get out, because that means what I'm saying, it's like but then the more education you get as you start really learning how to handle or deal with any issues and meet so many other people that have done it successfully, then it no longer becomes scary, and you really understand that this, this can be done, and it's not magic, and it's not, sometimes it can be a little bit of luck, but usually it's just running through the course as you're supposed to do it. When you talk about value add, buying value add properties, and fixing units up and being able to increase rents to the market values, and you have to do some research on the area where you're buying and find out what those markets are, and try to buy a property where the rents are below market rent already, so you have room no matter what you do, and just things like that help the process along.
Yeah, it's interesting how much information is out there these days as well. If you want to be educated, right, it's almost too much information sometimes, because it's, what do I study? Do I need to know all this, or what do I need to study, right? And it's really interesting how much information is out there, which I think is a good thing in the long term, And
it's a great thing.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's not magic, and there's a lot of different people that talk about it. Ari Mentor's one, Neil Bao is another one that's local out of the Northern California. He's a great guy. He does a lot of webinars. You can look at him up online, and most of his stuff is free. I mean, he does a boot camp that he sells, but he does a lot of webinars online that it's more data driven. He's really a data analyst kind of a person, but he really drills in deep on finding the right areas where population growth is growing and the job growth is growing. And, he hits those metrics with graphs and everything that make sense. And so it's educators like that you learn all of this from, and it's usually not from one, but it's like multiple sources. And then so they all have meetups and that you go to, and then you meet other people you're able to collaborate with on either education, or in many cases properties, and actually become partners.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, I love Neil's stuff. His location magic presentation.
Yeah.
I've seen that one. That was really cool. So you talked about when you were starting out, you had that confidence that you were going to be able to raise money, right? That's the skill that you were bringing to the table. That's what you kind of selling yourself on, that ability to raise that capital. Where did that confidence? Had you raised money before? How did you know that you could do that?
I mean, I'm fortunate enough to, I don't know, a group of friends that I kind of run with. We all ride motorcycles. We've been riding motorcycles for years, and we do a lot of kind of outdoor activities and things. And they're all entrepreneurs, right? They all make money, and I mean, they don't all necessarily make money, but they're all running businesses, some more successful than others, right? But it's interesting, and I consider myself the same, because I've always ran my own business. And it's interesting that something I kind of figured out when I first started thinking about raising money, and that it just made sense to me, and the light kind of turned on, is that a lot of people make a lot of money in different businesses, whether it's a job. They could be a technician working for Apple Computer, making, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. Or it could be somebody owns string of retail stores or something, and they make a lot of money. But that doesn't necessarily mean they know what to do with the money they make, right? And so one thing that they all have in common, that we all have in common, is when you make money, you want to make more. I mean, it's not a greed thing, but it's like, you don't want your money sitting in a bank account collecting, 1% interest. And so you're good at making money at whatever you're good at, right? Whatever that is. You could be an artist, you could be, whatever, a dog walker. I mean, you're making money doing that, and you're really good at it. But then you take your money, and then you have to do something with it. And it can be a difficult thing to try to invest in that, obviously the stock market, or, things like that can be a rough road. It's like you have to learn a whole nother business. So something like this, which is for sure, again, a passion for me. So it's really easy for me to get excited about real estate, and certainly these, multifamily large properties. And, it's just solid investment. The returns are, above average. They are much more solid generally than, like I said, the stock markets or banks and things, which stocks can make a lot of money, but they can go down the very next day, right? And real estate is the much more stable. It can go up and down, but it goes up and down slower. And I think it's much more predictable. So it makes it an easy sell for that type of an investment. I think that's where I have put my money. That's where I want to put my money. And so when I can talk about that with some of my other friends or connections, it's kind of an easy conversation.
Yeah. Well, how does that conversation go? Just out of interest, how do you just say, "Hey guys, I'm involved in this deal," or do you just ask them about them and what they're trying to achieve? How does that? Because if you come out and say, "Hey, do you want to give me money?" Right, that's going to get real awkward, right? But how does that? How do you start that conversation, or how does that conversation go with people that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's funny, it's really much more organic than, you're not selling anything. I mean, I don't look at it as I'm selling anything. And if a property is coming my way, I will, gently somewhere in the conversation, discuss about, bring up real estate or bring up, investments. And, I mean, do you ever invest in real estate? And, have property coming up, we're going to be raising money for it. If it's something you're interested, I'll be happy to send you information. And if it's not, it's not. I don't even need to, if they don't show interest at that point, I don't need to bring it up again. Right. I'm not trying to sell anything, and I wouldn't want to. So it's because it's not they're not buying anything. They're just investing their money. Mm-hmm. And then the numbers all kind of speak for themselves. And, you're able to, send them the prospectus on it, and they can make their own decision. So it's pretty simple. And that's for people I know. For people that I don't know, I mean, it doesn't matter where you are. You could be in a bar, a restaurant, or whatever. You start a conversation with somebody, and it's common to come up with say, "Hey, what do you do?" Right? And usually if I ask that first, and because eventually it's going to come back around, and what do you do? And I invest in real estate. I invest in multifamily properties around the country and in different emerging markets with apartment buildings that we raise money to fix them or to bring them up to par, and then we're able to increase profits by that. And generally the returns are generally much higher than other investments. And that's kind of about it. So it's people either have no interest in that, or they go, "Wow, that sounds kind of interesting. Tell me more." Or and then you can just send them information about that.
Yeah. I love the way you talk about it. It's the more of a natural approach, right, rather than trying to force anything down anyone's throat. And it's kind of the attitude as well of, I heard someone say this a long time ago, is that you're not asking them for money. You're more actually giving them an opportunity. You're doing them a favor in some way. Because like you said, a lot of these people, they're running $200,000 or $300,000 a year. They're busy. They're working in their jobs. They're successful doing what they do, and they don't necessarily know what to do with it, right? Outside of buying a Tesla or boats or whatever, spending it. If in terms of investments, these guys, because they're successful for a reason, right? They work hard. They're busy. So they don't have time to go buy properties and run it themselves and do the rehab and stuff like that. So when someone like yourselves offers them a great opportunity where they can get a higher return than they could in the stock market, it's backed by a tangible asset that's not going anywhere. You can go there, touch it, feel it, walk it, look at it. Yeah. And then on top of that, it has great tax benefits as well, right? That doesn't often get talked about in real estate, because it's all different depending on the individual, obviously. But a lot of money that you can make in real estate, you have, especially multifamily, because of the great tax benefits, you can write off that money in taxes and in expenses and in depreciation, and you'll hardly pay anything in taxes right now. It all depends on the individual, and I'm not saying that for everyone, in case someone comes back and say, "Hey, I have to pay taxes. You said I didn't have to pay taxes." But that's a great benefit to it as well, and it just and it's passive. All you have to do is, obviously up front you want to vet the syndicator, vet the deal, but once that hard work is done, and it's not really that hard of work, right? Once that's done, all you have to do is make sure that the check comes in every month or every quarter, whatever the distributions are, and just check the monthly newsletter and see that everything is as is. Okay, great. and cash my check, or your check goes directly to your bank account. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, right.
You're right. Yeah, I think we both agree on that. What outside of your friends and occasionally meeting people at bars or whatever, is there anything else that you're doing to try and meet investors, to go places, to kind of be around those type of people?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there, the meetups, believe it or not, a lot of the investment can come from other people that are involved in these deals. Like, I mean, like you, or like, other people that are actually buying, and including me. I'm the same way. Like, I've invested in other people's deals, and it's I'm the same way. It's like, if I'm making money, and I have money, and somebody brings me a deal that that looks good, the returns look good, the property looks good, it's in a good area that I like, I might throw money at it myself, even as a passive investor. And so you get a lot of that in these meetups with these educators, even like, Neil Bowie talked about, and where I met a couple of other partners that I work with now. And, there'd be like 50 people in a room, and you'll get up and, he'll give a talk about his, multifamily, finding the different areas and properties and so forth, how to do that. But everybody in that room is interested in real estate, right? And most of them, I don't know how I want to say it, but a lot of them don't really ever buy it, real estate, because it's a big deal. I mean, you can't just show up at a seminar and be, all of a sudden go out and buy a 100 unit complex in Texas, right? And when you live out of state, that's a big scary step. And so it's actually a smart move for somebody to, for you to invest in somebody else's deal that is a 100 unit complex in Texas, right? And come in as a passive investor. And, it's a good stepping stone to investing in real estate. You can still say, you have an investment in that town, in that area. You can still look it up. Obviously, you're interested in it. So, it's like the difference between, betting on a football game or just watching a football game. If you bet on it, you're going to know every player's stats on that team, right? Because now you got money on it. And it's kind of the same thing with the passive investing, because you're now interested in it. You're going to get much more involved in that part of it. And so you meet up a lot. The point is, you meet a lot of investors that are willing to come into your own deal at these kind of meetups. A lot of them are virtual. They're all virtual now, and but which is even better, because now these virtual meetups are people from all over the country that come in, and it can be a lot more people on one Zoom call than there is in a room.
Yeah, I've found that myself, that I've been attending, all these meetups that I could never go. One's in Chicago, one's in Charlotte, one's in Atlanta. They're on the other side of the country. I would never ever be able to go to these meetups, but because they're online, it's really, now it's not the same as going and meeting people, obviously, but still you have breakout rooms. We're able to meet people and all this stuff. And with Zoom, we're talking here today, right? It's not the same, but it's pretty close. And, we're able to look each other in the eye and, see each other's facial expressions and stuff like that. So I think that's one great thing that's kind of come from this lockdown and from this pandemic. But it's like you said as well, a lot of people, they go to events, right, a meetup, or they go to seminars, or they go to these things, conferences or whatever, and like you said, they'll never do anything for whatever reason, right? Fear, analysis paralysis, just where they are too busy, whatever it is. A lot of them, and they clearly have an interest in real estate, and I think that's a reflection of most people. There's hardly any people that you speak to about real estate like, oh, I don't like real estate, or I don't want to invest in real estate. Most people, I wish I could invest in real estate. Once you speak to people now, it's either they don't have money or they don't have time or whatever. But real estate is that asset that I think most people, they want to be involved with in some way or whatsoever. And I think it's interesting you said as well. I forgot to point that out earlier when we were talking about the syndication and being passively. If you're investing in a 100-unit deal as a passive investor, would you ever be able to buy a 100-unit deal yourself? Probably not, right? But you're involved in this 100-unit deal, and you get to be part of this really cool apartment complex. And I think as you touched on there, that's a really cool thing.
And it's really so much safer than trying, because a lot of people will go the other way, buy a small duplex or something in a town, or fourplex, and they spend their money that way in trying to get into multifamily. But that's a lot of work, right? It's a lot of work, and it's actually, the smaller the amount of doors, the more risk, right? If you have a fourplex and one tenant moves out and you can't rent that one unit, you've just lost 25% of your income coming down, right? And if it's a duplex and one moves out, you've just lost 50%. So when you go in as a passive, not only are you going in, you can go in as you said, a much smaller amount, and sometimes you come in with $25,000 or $50,000. So sometimes the numbers are small, but you're going into a much bigger operation, and so there's much less risk of loss, I think.
Yeah, and with a single family, a lot of times, and I've found this out myself, if you get one real big capex mishap, whatever it is, right, a big leak or roof or something like that, that kills your cash flow, not only for the year, but probably for a few years, right? And then that sucks. That's no fun whatsoever. But on the large apartment complexes, you have usually money set aside for capex. You have capital reserves. And also when you're involved in larger buildings, if one roof goes out of 10 buildings that you have, the other buildings are able to support that. The cash flow and the money and everything they come from that can help support that. So it's, usually you don't lose anything. So you're insulated by that size a lot of times. That economies of scale, I think, like you talked about, helps a lot there.
Yeah, that's right. And you're also, there's so many things that are advantage to it. Like to get a property manager to run a 100-unit complex compared to getting a property manager to run, a 4-unit complex, right? It's night and day in the type of quality of property management companies that you would get, right? They're all fighting for 100 units. They're not all fighting for 4 units. And so you're able to choose a much, much more efficient property manager, which makes it runs much smoother.
Yeah, that's so true. I own 6 units and my property manager is great. I love him. If he's watching, Josh, I love you, man. You're awesome. But there's a level of sophistication that you don't get, right? They're used to single family homes. They're used to smaller stuff. And, when you're going to 100-unit plus, those property managers better know what they're doing, right? They better be sharp. They better have systems in place. They better have experience in doing that, right? They understand the market a lot better, right? Because you have to with 100 units. You can't mess around at that point. So I've felt that myself, and that's so true. Going back to that first deal, how much money did you raise for that deal, if you don't mind me asking?
For which deal?
The first deal, the 80 unit.
So the 60 unit, it's 60 unit in College Station. Yeah. So with that unit, with that property, I came in with my own money.
Okay.
So again, I came in, but fortunately, because of my education in multifamily and it kind of and the connections, I was able to come in as a GP rather than just passive investor. But that was just my own money. I did bring that investment, made it sent that to some people that I know, and which was really, I'm glad I did, even though nobody bought into it on the first one, because they asked me now how that's doing, and it is doing well. But it kind of wets the whistle, right? So, you start sending a property out to people that didn't even know you were doing it, and just saying, hey, if you have any interest in this, I just want to let you know this is what I'm doing. And, at first they're, they have to kind of, think about that, whether that's something they want to do. But by the time the second one comes around, they've already thought, and now you come another one, and they kind of feel like they missed out on the first one, and so it works pretty well.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I never thought about that. If you're it's a point of it's a talking point to start off with. Right? So if you invest in a deal and it does great, you get a whatever preferred return, and it's performing all the time and all this. That's a talking point with certain people that you can bring up and be like, hey, I'm doing this. I've done this deal. I invested my own money and it's doing great. Most people are going to be interested from that, and that can lead on to another conversation about perhaps them investing as well. I never thought about that. That's a good point. So the second deal, the large deal, the 400 plus unit deal, how much money do you raise for that one then? How?
So I raised over $1 million on that first deal. I didn't know how much I was going to raise, but I put it out there, and that was what happened. It was a $25 million purchase price, and the total raise was $7 million. When I got kind of brought into it really at the tail end, and they'd already raised almost all the money, and so then I was kind of able to put that out to my network and complete the raise. I probably could have raised more, but that was all that was left.
$1 million on your first raise. That's incredible. How many investors was that?
Just two.
Two, really?
Just two.
Friends or just people you've met, or
they are acquaintances? Yeah.
Okay. Wow, I need to hang out with you then and your friends. That's amazing. That's really cool. Yeah, to raise $1 million on your first deal, that's phenomenal. And that's quite the track record, right? Now to go on to future deals, you could say I raised this $1 million, and I'm looking to raise more. And like you said, you could have raised even more than that. That's phenomenal. That's really
and I think it does grow. I mean, again, if you I just feel more and more confident with it, right? And especially in both these properties, I'm very involved. I again have underwritten the properties myself, so I knew the cash on cash going in, and what they're projected returns, and read through the whole operation manual of what they're projecting to do, and what kind of value add. And so it's all a good story to me, and seems like it could work really well. Cash flows day one, so regardless what happens, right? If I think they're going to be conservative, not go spend a bunch of money, right up front, but they'll gently go into it, and so I feel good about it, and have my money in it. So
what was the equity? What was the return to investors on that deal? Was there a preferred return? What was the
the preferred return is an 8% preferred return, and about almost 22% annualized over a 5-year. So what they're hoping for the equity, and it's a fairly conservative number. So without any major mishaps, I mean they should be able to attain that.
Nice. Well, those are some good returns. What was the business model on that one? It was a value add, I believe you said, right?
Value add. So it's 3 different properties. One was 200. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but one was about 200 doors, and the other 2 are about 100 doors. They're all in the same town, same city in Independence, Missouri. It's a suburb of Kansas City. So same property manager, same group that's going to be operating all of that. But their plan is one is getting a full facelift out exterior as far as paint. They're putting in a dog park, a little kids playground. They're going to be doing upgrading 33 of the units to premium units, and putting in granite countertops and stainless steel appliances and a lighting package, and kind of upgrading it a little above the norm. And they're going to do that gently, like they'll probably do it in sections of 4, and then rent them for above the rents accordingly. So as long as they keep renting, they'll continue to do that. The other one of the others are going to do the same, another 33 units that they're going to turn into premium units. That one needs it's going to have new roof. They're also going to put a dog park into that. And then the third one is not much. I think they're going to do some exterior signage and some things like that, but that's about it.
Oh, nice. And what kind of area is it? Is it a C area, B area, E area?
Yeah, C-class area.
Okay, solid workforce housing type area.
Yeah, but it's a lot, C-class area, but it's and they're C-class properties, but they all have, each one of them have a pretty good story. I mean, one's across the street from the school, but it's it's a nice school, high school. And another's like kind of down the street from the hospital and so forth. So they're all in pretty good areas. And, if you can upgrade, that many units in one town, you can make a dent in that alone. And it's I think it's also, it feels good to be able to, the attitude is not to just simply go in there and just raise rents and make, try to kind of, make people hurting for money, right? I mean, it can be difficult in this age, but you're really increasing the, the value. I mean, the living, quarters, right? And you're giving them a better place to live and upgrading the grounds and, keeping them clean and, painting the place and, putting in some amenities like the dog park and, kids playground. So you're really creating a better environment for your tenants. And that's a good thing. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when people speak about value add, I think that's what I see value add to be, right? It's creating a better living environment for tenants, right? That's, value add is a word, but I prefer, that mindset of you, but giving these people a better place to live, which in turn you're getting compensated for it financially. But ultimately, your main goal is to provide these tenants with a better place to live, a better, like you said, the landscaping, the exterior of the building, and then improving the interiors of these buildings as well, and giving them a great place to live. And because of that, you're getting compensated. But ultimately, we care about the tenants, right? The tenants is the most important thing, because otherwise we just own real estate. It's just a brick building or whatever that building is, right? It's just bricks and mortar without those tenants. And yeah, I love that you talk about that. That's the most important thing to us as landlords, is that, because we get a bad rap sometimes. I think it's just misunderstood sometimes what we try and achieve. Very cool, very cool. And out of interest, what was that, a 506B, a 506C?
That was 506B.
Okay, so where you can have up to 35 sophisticated investors, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but you guys can advertise. Okay, yeah, B for boy. Cool. Okay, very interesting. What is next for you? Do you think?
So I'm evaluating some different properties now. We've with my local partners here. With Jeannie and Chip is their name, and they're actually out in Texas right now, and they're looking at some properties. They're going to spend they're spending like 6 weeks out there, and they're going out to look at some properties that have been kind of on the list, and meeting with brokers and doing some interaction with there. So we're looking at a 200 plus unit property right now that they've already gone to. And my Kansas City team is they're actually already in contract on another couple of properties out there. So that'll be another one coming up here soon. And even the team that I'm in partners with in the College Station, they've got another couple of mini storage and another apartment building that they're in negotiations with right now. So it's, it's nice. I love that, right? I mean, again, it's a team sport. You don't necessarily have to do all the work yourself. And once you do a good job at whatever you do, they want you, and it becomes a real good, partnership.
Yeah, it's so true, because it really is a team sport, like you said a few times now. It's like a football team, right? You can't play all positions, right? You're not going to be the kicker, you're not going to be the quarterback, you're not going to be the tight end, you're not going to do all this, right? And my friends listening back home are going to be impressed by all this football jargon that I've learned, because I grew up a soccer fan, but you can't play all those positions. So what you need is find people to play these positions with you, and you can play, and you find your own position, and you get good at it, and you just stick to that. Because if you try and do everything, there's not enough hours in a day to do it, especially on these large, 200 unit apartment complexes. You can't do everything. It's impossible, right? It really is impossible for you to do everything. So you find a spot that you fit in that team, and you fit well, and you find other team members that fit well, and you just work together, and everyone prospers, right? It's just really cool to me that's
it's just a trust factor as well. You get into business, in these business relationships with people that you trust, and that's just a blessing. I mean, when you can start doing business with somebody that you just really feel comfortable with and trust 100%. And I mean, that just makes it so much easier, right? So you for sure want to go back to those people when.
Yeah. People you like working with as well, right? You want to have people that you work with. You don't want to have to work with people that, you have to grit your teeth every time you're talking to them or whatever.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, cool. Yeah, really interesting. So this show's called Wrestling with Real Estate. So I like to do a little segment where I ask people wrestling-related real estate questions to some extent. So the first question I like to ask people is, what would your wrestling name to be? If you had to pick a wrestling name for yourself, what would it be?
Yeah, man, I'm going to say take down Mike. That's what
Okay.
I'm going to say, right? Because that's what I feel like, we're taking down properties, and that's, so I want to be take down Mike.
Nice, I like it. Yeah, you're taking down some deals, and obviously going to continue to do so. I love that.
Yeah.
Every wrestler has a special move. What would your special move be in real estate, you think?
My special move in real estate is going to be, it's problem solving. I mean, obviously it's been money raising has been kind of what I've done, but I'm a pretty good problem solver. I like that. I like taking on problems and coming up with solutions and, you know, trying to figure it out. So I'm not sure if that answers the question,
Oh
but
yeah, it does. Yeah, problem solve. Yeah, because all real estate is a bunch of problems, really. Like, and if you
it
can solve
is.
all
Yeah.
problems, yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, cool. What's been the biggest body slam you've had in your real estate investing career, you think?
Body slam, um, I, I can't say that it's been really a lot of negativity for me. I mean, I'm just fortunate. I sold my, home, $1 million home back in the downturn for, probably, it went really fast and it was a pretty good price for what it was. And then I went out and rented and then bought another house that, appreciated, dramatically just a year or two after I bought it. And on the multifamily, it's all been good as well too. I haven't really had any bad issues, knock on wood. But so kind of thinking on the biggest thing probably is just getting into some of these big deals that I just never thought I could get into. And that to me is, it's maybe not a body slam, but it's for sure, awakening, where something like hit me and just said, gosh, I can't believe that I'm getting into these deals. And so that would be it. But I'd say both. On the 60 unit was a big thing, but the 426 obviously is really big.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure that's quite a sense of achievement, right, to be involved with such a great deal like that.
Feels good, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Was there a moment that you were standing on the top rope getting ready to jump, but you were too scared? What was it and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, that'll explain the last, couple of years, right? Almost every day, right? Because even going into the training, especially at the beginning of it, everybody's telling you you can do this. And, and they all tell you right out of the gate, the only thing that's going to stop you from doing it is your own fear. But, it's a fear you can't, it's like standing over that cliff, somebody can tell you don't be scared, but it's a difficult one. And several people, told me in conversations during, since that beginning that have got into deals. And, they say, it's kind of the same thing. It's like when you're ready, you'll know it. And that's true. So, I think that ready though is the education and just getting that education and feeling confident that you would know how to handle it. Because it's not magic. It's really, it's just knowledge. And there's a lot of people in real estate. My other business is in advertising and marketing and all that. And, as an advertising guy, you don't call another advertising guy and say, hey, what do you think about this? And how do I handle this problem, in the advertising business, right? I mean, it doesn't really happen. People don't really interact too much. It's more, that's on the B2B side, right? Business to business type marketing. So you're kind of out there all on your own. But in real estate, there are so many people there that are willing to help you. And they really want to, because everybody came from the same beginning. It doesn't matter if they have they bought their first duplex or they own 1,000 doors or 5,000 doors, right there. They still started out small at one point in time. And so they all seem to, at least what I've found, they all seem to like to help everybody. And so that's,
Yeah.
again, I don't answer that right.
No, absolutely. And I found the same thing. Like, seems like the more successful people are, the more they're willing to actually help, which is counterintuitive, right? You think they'd be too busy or they wouldn't want to help people. But I found out the more successful people are, the nicer and the more helpful they are.
Yeah, and especially in real estate, because, if they made their money, most of the time they made it on equity over time. It's another big point of a lot of people, real estate, it's not a get rich quick program. It's running a marathon, right? I mean, it takes a long time. You got to, it takes years, and you can get lucky, but that can't be what your goal is to get rich overnight. So you're doing kind of long-term goal planning, and yeah, so
it is. No, it absolutely is. Yeah, it's a time thing, right? You have to invest that time into it, but also you have to wait for that time to pass, to sort of making, I wish there was a way that we could say, hey, you can make $1 million by tomorrow, but it doesn't really work like that, right? Some people have, but for the most part, you just you have to buy an investment, take care of it, nurture it, grow it, and over time, like you said, you'll get wealthy. So
yeah. And so these guys that have been successful at it and have made a lot of money at real estate, most all of them made it that way. They didn't make it overnight, made it over time. So when somebody, younger and, more of a beginner wants some information about that, they like it. I think they like talking about it, and they love helping somebody else because it's not really affecting them. It's not like it's not like you're going to be a competitor to them by, teaching them your secrets. So I think everybody likes to help. I
agree. Well, cool, Mike. Well, thank you so much for making the time. It's been really interesting having this conversation, from that first experience as an 18-year-old talking to that older gentleman and him planting that seed to now, as a syndicator, raising money for these, large, phenomenal deals, and, continuing to do that in the future. It's been quite a journey, I think, right, along the way. And it's not quite just starting, but there's a lot to come, I feel like, from you. So I'll be excited to keep in touch with you and hear where it goes. So thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it as well.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well, have a great day, man.
Thank you. Thank you, Barry.